Hello and welcome to the next stage in our hero's journey on the Monomyth. So we have looked at a couple of stages so far. We will go over them in a second, but we are looking at the hero's journey as a whole and looking at the different stages of Joseph Campbell's breakdown of the hero's journey in his book in his writings from 1949. All right. So if you haven't seen the other videos in this series already, and if you've just randomly jumped into this one, then please go back and watch the first couple of parts so that you know where we are up to and you've got a bit more detail in there. All right, let's get to it. So we'll start here. We always start here. So we've got our quote from The Hero with a Thousand Faces from Joseph Campbell. Hero ventures forth from the world of common day into a region of supernatural wonder. Fabulous forces are there encountered and a decisive victory is won. Are we there with our decisive victory yet? I don't think we are. Let's find out where we are up to. So we are looking at stage 3 today, and we're looking at the approach, the ordeal and the reward, and this part is labelled up, you see on our little infographic, as unification and transformation. This is where some big stages in our hero's journey will happen and go through. Okay, so we're at the halfway point, so let's very quickly go through. Remember, I'm using Star Wars as my example, and it's Star Wars 4 A New Hope, the 1977 release. So if you've not seen it before, then the videos will give stuff away, but it's been out for a while, like I say, so you should be alright by now. It probably, I know I said at the start of this little series that if you haven't seen it, it's not the end of the world. I would encourage you to watch it once you've gone through this whole process if you've never seen it before. If you've seen it, then you can relate to what I'm talking about. But if you haven't seen it, then it's worth going back and having a look at those different stages and mapping it out as you go. Trust me, it's one of the best movies in the world. You'll enjoy yourself, I'm sure. Right, so we have looked at a few stages already. So we start with the ordinary world, where we met our hero. We find out that he's just an ordinary person, their everyday life, and we have that link with them initially. They get this call to adventure, and they kind of find out a new mission, a new direction that they might need to take, and then there's that refusal of the call. Am I good enough to do this? Is this really the right thing for me? Should this be where I'm going? Within Star Wars, we talked about before that they meet their mentor, and they've got this mentor that guides them and leads them on their way, maybe giving them some wisdom, giving them maybe an object that helps them with that journey. Crossing the threshold was where we looked at how the hero is taken from their normal ordinary world and they make that move into a new journey and a new way that they are going to travel through this story and this narrative. And then lastly, in the previous video to this one, we looked at test allies and enemies. The test that our hero is going to face, the allies that they will meet along the way to maybe help them with those, and the enemies that may be kind of pushing those tests towards them throughout the narrative. Okay, so we have looked at a number of examples all the way through, and today we are up to halfway, like I said, and looking at our next section. So approach to the Inmost Cave is the title for our next section. Let's read through what we're looking at. So the Inmost Cave may represent many things in the hero story, such as an actual location in which lies a terrible danger, or an inner conflict which up until now the hero has not had to face. As the hero approaches the cave, he must make final preparations before taking that final leap into the great unknown. At the threshold to the Inmost Cave, the hero may once again face some of the doubts and fears that first surfaced upon his call to adventure. You remember that refusal of the call. He may need some time to reflect upon his journey and the treacherous road ahead in order to find the courage to continue. This brief respite helps the audience understand the magnitude of the ordeal that awaits the hero and escalates the tension in anticipation of his ultimate test. Okay, so there's a lot there that we go through, and using Star Wars, using Star Wars, our approach to the Inmost Cave is their journey as they leave Luke's home planet of Tatooine, and they kind of travel to find the home planet of the princess who was in the message, who gave the call to action. They're in the ship, they're in the Millennium Falcon, and during that time we have a few things happening. Okay, so this scene is where they've realised that they're heading towards this big space station called the Death Star, which is the centrepiece of the Empire, the oppressive regime on the galaxy at that time, and the enemy of our story in a group form, if you like. So if we just go back, so the Inmost cave may represent many things in the hero story, such as an actual location. So we've got that location. They're heading towards the Death Star that lies this terrible danger. They realise it's this big station and there's danger kind of involved in there. The hero approaches the cave. He must make the final preparations before taking that final leap into the great unknown. He's never known anything like this. He is a farmer. Now, we've kind of learnt that from the early part of the story. So he's learning from his mentor, from Obi-Wan Kenobi, on this journey, on this space journey, this part of our kind of whole story. More ways of the Force, more ways of how to use his lightsaber, and different elements of that part of his understanding, if you like, of where his part fits into all of this. At the threshold of the case, he may have some doubts. He's not sure that he's good enough to do this. When he's training and what have you, he gets mocked a little bit by one of the allies that are on the ship with him, winding him up and just kind of mucking about. But it gives him that chance to reflect, is he good enough to do this? Is he the right person to help rescue this princess, find what this message is all about as he go through? So we're learning with the hero as we kind of go through this section of the approach to the Inmost Cave. We're learning with our hero in Star Wars that are they good enough? Can they accomplish the mission that they might be on as he goes forward? And with this screenshot, we see as kind of there's a physical representation of approaching that Inmost Cave as they go forward. All right, let's have a look at the next bit. The ordeal. The supreme ordeal may be a dangerous physical test or a deep inner crisis that the hero must face in order to survive, or for the world in which the hero lives to continue to exist. Whether it be facing his greatest fear or most deadly foe, the hero must draw upon all of his skills and experiences gathered upon the path to the Inmost Cave in order to overcome the most difficult challenge. Only through some form of death can the hero be reborn, experiencing a metaphorical resurrection that somehow grants him greater power or insight necessary in order to fulfill his destiny or reach his journey's end. This is the high point of the hero's story, and where everything he holds dear is put on the line. If he fails, he will either die, or life as he knows it will never be the same again. Now, with Star Wars, I would say that there are two ordeal points, and we have got this one at the moment, which I'll go through, and then we have another one that comes up later, but it fits into the hero's journey in a slightly different way, the latter one. So we'll look at this one initially. So the ordeal that our hero is facing, Luke has and Han Solo, Chewbacca, Obi-Wan Kenobi and the droids have been pulled onto this Death Star, this big space station, and they find out subsequently that the princess is on this space station, and that's what they're going to do. They're going to rescue the princess. That becomes their ordeal, that they need to kind of get through all of these stormtroopers, all of these soldiers, all of the enemies that are all in their kind of home turf, if you like, find the princess and escape. So you've got that ordeal that he's never had to face before. He's never had to rescue anyone before. He's never had to kind of fight off soldiers before. We learn at the very start in the Ordinary World section that he's just a farmer. What is it that his part to play as he goes through this ordeal part of the narrative? So we've got that going on. The other side of it is that we see that Obi-Wan Kenobi, who is the mentor, the master, if you like, of teaching Luke and helping him to understand where his part plays, has an old foe on the station. And we can see in the shot that it's Darth Vader in the black on the right-hand side. Okay, so you've got two kind of side characters almost from our hero that have got this other battle, this other ordeal going on alongside our hero's journey as well. As our hero Luke goes off to rescue the princess, Obi-Wan must face Darth Vader, and this is where our death comes in. So if you haven't seen the movie, spoilers, okay, but in this scene Obi-Wan Kenobi is killed by Darth Vader. Okay, there's a famous line that says, "If you strike me down, I will only become stronger." Something along those lines. I've got that wrong, but anyway. And that's the death that we see back in our ordeal. So if you see just at the start of the second paragraph on there, only through some form of death can the hero be reborn, experiencing a metaphorical resurrection that somehow grants him greater power or insight necessary in order to fulfill his destiny or reach his journey's end. So the death in this story isn't of Luke, our hero, but is of his mentor, and the ordeal that is then going to put him through. How can he then go on without Obi-Wan Kenobi? How can he fulfill the mission? What's going to happen? So we see that we've got this high point and this drama of him rescuing the princess and fulfilling that part of the mission, and that kind of adventure and that excitement of that story going on. But then you've got the death of his mentor in Obi-Wan Kenobi, almost kind of twisting that on its head, so that he's kind of unsure of whether or not he has the ability to do everything. Okay, he's got to realise that he's got to put everything on the line now. All right, so that's the ordeal. There is a reward. So after defeating the enemy, surviving death, and finally overcoming his great personal challenge, the hero is ultimately transformed into a new state, emerging from a battle as a stronger person and often with a prize. The reward may come in many forms: an object of great importance or power, a secret, greater knowledge or insight, or even reconciliation with a loved one or ally. Whatever the treasure, which may well facilitate his return to the ordinary world, the hero must quickly put celebrations aside and prepare for the last leg of his journey. So this is where we kind of start getting this mix-up of he's got a reward in some sense. He's rescued the princess. She has informed them that there are plans to destroy this space station on the droid that gave the initial message early in this story. So there is a reward. They've escaped from the Death Star. Again, spoilers, sorry. And they're kind of travelling back to their kind of group of rebels and their army to give them these plans so that they can put together a strategy, a plan to destroy the Death Star itself. So there is a reward. We've kind of gone from ordeal and the loss of his mentor and the death in that section to then having the reward of they've got away, they've escaped, they've got an idea of what they can do to stop the Empire's evil plans. And you've got that development and that insight going through. Yes, you've lost your mentor, but you've got the sense of achievement that you've done that. We've got a chance now to win the battle, to win the war, and go forward. So you've got that treasure in the princess and in the plans that they have found going through. Okay, the screenshot I put on this is once they've escaped and they are travelling back, and you've got the princess and Luke talking to each other, and she's trying to explain that his mentor would want him to carry on, would want him to fulfill the mission and take these plans back to the rebels, understand what they can do to win, and for the journey, for Luke's journey and the hero to continue. So this is where we set it up. Now, there are some kind of double peaks almost. I would say that there's going to be further rewards and further ordeals within the Star Wars story that we can link back to, but they are part of the final section that we are going to go through in the hero's journey. Let's just ping back to our infographic. So we can see there that we've gone through part 1 and our call to adventure, part 2 and the initiation of that adventure and how that starts, and then part 3 we've looked at today and the transformation that our hero goes through as he goes through the ordeal, as he picks up the rewards, whatever they may come to him as in your story or in any other story. Like I say, in Star Wars, it's rescuing the princess, it's finding out that the droid has these plans to destroy the Death Star, and they go through. The last one, the last section we're going to go through is the road back and the hero's return. With Star Wars, I've already said that there is a little bit of a crossover on here, but we'll look at that in our next video. Remember, please, you should be using these to develop and work on your understanding of a story, of a narrative, so that you can create your own choose your own adventure story. Let me just remind you, you should be looking at this website, inkwriter.com, and using that. Sign up, it's free, it's open source, so you don't have to worry about paying for anything or anything like that. It's web based, so you don't have to download or install anything, so you should be able to access it in any way possible that you can. And and put together your own choose your own adventure story. Like I say, it can come in many forms. You can take a story that already exists and do your kind of other side of what we've seen already, part to it. You could do that with a video game narrative as well if you wanted to. You can make your own original story and have your adventure and your options going off in different ways as you go through. Like I say, there's a tutorial on here that you can go through and work on, so that's nice and easy to follow. If you sign up, then you can look at the different sections really easily, and you can share it really easily. That's the main reason of signing up, so that you can save what you've done, you can come back to it, and you can share it with us once you're done. All right. I said in the later email, about between 1,000 and 2,000 words, I think, is more than enough to get a good story on the go. If you go over that because you get a little bit of verbal diarrhea and you're enjoying the process, then do not worry. That is absolutely fine. We'd love it for you to kind of run with this and see what you can create, especially during these times at the moment. We've got time to work on this. Deadline for this, remember, is the 22nd of May 2020, so that we get it up there. I will ping a link to how you're going to submit that in due course. Okay. Any questions, as ever, always give me an email and let me know, and I will go through it with you on there. But that is our third part. We've got one more part to look at, and then you've got the Monomyth and the hero's journey laid out before you with all of the sections that we've gone through. And then how can you use that to develop your own narrative and to develop your own story in the choose your own adventure task. All right, looking forward to reading your stories, hoping they're all going well, and that is it for today. See you in the next video for the final part of our hero's journey.